They called me useless for so long that I almost believed it, until I realized my silence wasn't weakness, it was patience. And patience, when sharpened by pain, can ruin entire families. If you've ever been underestimated, betrayed, or quietly erased by your own blood, subscribe. These stories aren't just entertainment, they're survival manuals. I stood in my childhood bedroom, staring at my reflection like I didn't recognize the woman looking back at me. The mirror was old, edges clouded, a hairline crack running through the corner. Same mirror that had watched me grow up invisible. Same room where I learned how to stay quiet without disappearing completely. Downstairs, the house hummed with activity. Laughter, glasses clinking. My mother's voice, tight and sharp, directing caterers like a general preparing for war. Tonight mattered to them. It always did. I smoothed my dress with my palms. Navy blue. Simple. Clean. The kind of dress that didn't beg for attention. I'd learned a long time ago that anything flashy would just give them another reason to look at me with that familiar mix of judgment and disappointment. "You're really wearing that?" I didn't hear my sister come in. I turned. She leaned against the doorframe like she owned the room, like she owned everything. Claire always looked expensive without trying. Perfect hair, perfect skin, engagement ring flashing like a promise she didn't earn. "It's fine," I said. She tilted her head, eyes dragging over me slowly. "I mean, sure, if you're not planning on being in photos." That sting was automatic, sharp, familiar. "I wasn't planning on it," I said quietly. She smiled, satisfied. "Good." Footsteps thundered up the stairs. My father. I felt him before I saw him, the way tension always thickened the air around him. He stopped short when he saw me. "Oh, you're here early." I swallowed. "I came to help." He nodded absently, already distracted. "Just don't get in the way. This isn't your kind of crowd." My kind. Like I was a stain they hadn't managed to scrub out. I watched them leave without another word. Claire's heels clicked away. My father's steps were heavy with authority. I exhaled slowly. This was how it always went. No shouting, no dramatic cruelty, just small, precise cuts, the kind that didn't bleed enough for anyone else to notice. Downstairs, the house looked like a magazine spread, flowers everywhere, soft lighting, crystal glasses lined like obedient soldiers. This celebration wasn't cheap, and none of it was really theirs. "Can you move?" my mother snapped as I stepped into the kitchen. I was just, "Go sit somewhere." Somewhere. I nodded and backed away, my chest tight. As people arrived, the energy shifted, smiles widened, voices softened. My family transformed into something warm and charming and intouchable. I became furniture. I stood near the back, nursing a drink I didn't want, listening as relatives talked about success like it was a moral virtue. "Claire's fiancé works in private equity. Very impressive." My father chuckled. "Well, we raised her right." No one mentioned me. Not my job, not my life, not the fact that I'd been quietly paying off debts no one thanked me for. Someone brushed past me, spilling champagne on my sleeve. "Oh, sorry," a cousin muttered as already turning away. I watched the bubbles slide down the fabric and disappear. That felt about right. Later, as the speeches started, I slipped outside onto the back patio. The air was cold, sharp enough to breathe. I pressed my hands to the railing. Inside, they celebrated love, success, family. None of it included me. My phone buzzed. A message. "Everything's ready. Just say the word." I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering. Not yet. Inside, laughter erupted. I took one last look through the glass at the people who shared my blood, but never my heart. They had no idea what they'd built their happiness on, and they had no idea who they were really standing on. The night didn't end when the guests left. That was the thing no one ever told you about family gatherings. The silence afterward was always louder than the noise, louder than laughter, louder than clinking glasses, louder than the fake love they poured like champagne. I stayed late. Of course I did. I helped the staff clean because my mother looked overwhelmed, even though she'd barely lifted a finger all night. I stacked plates while Claire laughed with her fiancé in the living room, her ring catching the light every time she gestured, like it wanted attention as badly as she did. "You don't have to do that," she said, not looking at me. "I know," I replied. I kept scrubbing. That was always our dynamic. She didn't ask. I didn't expect thanks. My father hovered nearby, talking quietly to an uncle. I caught fragments. "Never really amounted to much." The soft one. "Should have pushed her harder." Each word landed with the dull thud of something heavy hitting the floor of my chest. I kept my head down. I'd been doing that my whole life. When I was 8, I brought home a drawing I was proud of. Hours of coloring, careful shading. I handed it to my father like it was a gift. He glanced at it once. "Your sister did better at that age," he said, handing it back. I learned that night that effort didn't matter. Only comparison did. By 16, I'd learned how to disappear inside my own skin. I didn't ask for rides. I didn't ask for help with college applications. I worked after school, saved quietly, moved out the second I could. They called it independence. I called it survival. "Can you come here?" my mother said now, her voice sharp. I wiped my hands and followed her into the dining room. She shut the door behind us, lowering her voice like we were conspiring. "You embarrassed me tonight." "What?" My stomach dropped. "You barely spoke. You looked miserable. People noticed." I laughed once, bitter and soft. "I was told not to get in the way." "That's not what I meant," she snapped. "You should have tried harder, smiled more. You looked resentful." Resentful. The words scraped something raw inside me. "I was helping," I said. "Like always." She sighed dramatically. "This isn't about you. This night was for your sister." Of course it was. I nodded. Habit. Reflex. "I just don't want people thinking we failed you," she added, quieter now. That did it. I stared at her. "You didn't fail me." Her eyes flickered. Confusion, then irritation. "You just never chose me," I said. Silence stretched between us. Thick, uncomfortable. She crossed her arms. "You're always sensitive." There it was, the family diagnosis. Sensitivity, the polite word for inconvenience. I left the room before I said something I couldn't take back. In my old bedroom, I sat on the edge of the comforter, fingers twisting into the comforter like it might ground me. My phone buzzed again. "They're pushing the vendor payments tomorrow. Everything's under your authorization." I closed my eyes. Flashbacks came uninvited. My father telling relatives I didn't have ambition. My mother forgetting my birthday 2 years in a row. Claire borrowing money and never paying it back. Family dinners where my accomplishments were met with polite nods, while Claire's grocery lists earned applause. I thought if I stayed good, quiet, reliable, useful, they'd see me eventually. I was wrong. The next morning, the house smelled like burnt coffee and leftover flowers. I came downstairs to find my father sitting at the table, papers spread out. His jaw tightened when he saw me. "We need to talk." I sat. He pushed a document toward me. "We're finalizing some finances. Since you're not really contributing to this family, we think it's best you stay out of it." I scanned the paper. Vendor invoices, contracts, numbers I recognized too well. I looked up slowly. "You already signed." "Yes," he said sharply. "And?" "And those contracts list me as the primary account holder." The room shifted. "What?" he said. I kept my voice calm. "The venue, the caterers, the event planners, they go through my company." His face darkened. "That's not possible." "It is," I said. "You just never asked." Silence. My mother appeared in the doorway, sensing tension like a shark senses blood. "What's going on?" "She's confused," my father snapped, trying to make herself relevant. Something inside me cracked then, not loudly, quietly, cleanly. "I didn't do it for relevance," I said. "I did it because you asked for help and didn't want to know how it came." My mother stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. "You run a business?" she asked. I nodded. Claire walked in mid-conversation, coffee in hand. "Why does everyone look like they're about to cry?" My father turned to her. "Your sister thinks she owns the event." Claire laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh my God, you're serious?" I met her eyes. "I don't think it. I do." She scoffed. "You don't even drive a decent car." That one hurt more than it should have. I stood up. "I didn't tell you because you never cared to ask, and because every time I opened my mouth growing up, someone told me I wasn't enough." My mother's lips trembled. "Why would you hide something like that from us?" I shrugged. "Why would I share it with people who made me feel small for existing?" No one answered. Claire set her coffee down hard. "You're doing this on purpose, to ruin my engagement." I shook my head. "I wanted you to be happy." "Then stop this," she said. "Hand it over." There it was. Not an apology, not recognition, just demand. "I can't," I said. "It's already done." My father stood, looming. "You think this gives you power?" I looked at him, really looked at him. The man who taught me silence, the man who never once asked how I was. "No," I said. "I think it shows me who never had it." The room felt colder. They didn't yell, they didn't cry, they did something worse. They froze me out. For the rest of the day, I might as well have been a ghost. Conversations stopped when I entered rooms. Doors closed quietly. My mother avoided eye contact. Claire spoke about me like I wasn't there. She's always been dramatic. She's trying to control things. She's jealous. I packed my bag that night with shaking hands. At the door, I paused. "I loved you," I said softly. No one followed me. In my car, I finally let myself cry, ugly, shaking sobs that stole my breath. But underneath the pain was something else. Clarity. They weren't confused. They weren't blind. They chose not to see me. And now, I was done trying to be visible. I didn't go back to the house for 3 days. Not because I was busy, though I was, but because every time I thought about walking through that front door again, my chest tightened like it was bracing for impact. Instead, I stayed in my apartment, quiet, clean, mine. I slept in the middle of the bed instead of clinging to the edge. I cooked real food. I answered emails. I made decisions without wondering how they'd be received or who they'd disappoint. It felt wrong, and good, and terrifying. On the 4th day, my phone rang. Dad. I stared at the screen until it stopped buzzing. A minute later, a text came through. "We need to resolve this. You're creating unnecessary tension." Unnecessary. Like my whole existence. I didn't reply. By the next morning, my mother tried. "You don't understand how stressed your sister is. Please come talk." No apology, no acknowledgement, just another request wrapped in guilt. I almost caved. Muscle memory is a hell of a thing. But then another message came in, this one from the event coordinator. "We're getting pressure from the family to override approvals, just checking if that's authorized." I exhaled slowly. So that was their plan. Go around me, pretend I didn't exist until I stopped being inconvenient. I typed back, "No changes without my written approval." My hands didn't shake this time. The engagement dinner, the big one, the one with donors and business partners and all the people my family desperately wanted to impress, was scheduled for that night. I hadn't planned to go, but something in me knew I had to, not to cause a scene, to finish something. The venue was breathtaking, candlelight, white linens, soft music floating through the air like money. I arrived alone. No announcement, no grand entrance, just me in a black dress that fit like armor. Heads turned, not because I was stunning, but because I didn't belong, at least not in their version of the story. My mother spotted me first. Her smile faltered for half a second before snapping back into place. "You came," she said, like she hadn't spent the last week pretending I didn't exist. "I was invited," I replied calmly. She leaned in. "Please don't do anything tonight." I met her eyes. "I won't." That was the truth. I didn't need to. The damage was already in motion. Dinner progressed with speeches and laughter and carefully curated affection. Claire glowed, soaking it in. My father shook hands like a king surveying his court. No one acknowledged me. Halfway through the evening, the event manager approached the microphone, looking slightly pale. "Apologies. We've encountered a minor administrative issue." My father stiffened. The room murmured. He glanced around sharply, eyes landing on me like an accusation. The manager continued. "Apologies. The primary account holder hasn't approved." "What?" Claire snapped, standing up. "That's impossible." The manager checked his tablet. "The primary account holder hasn't approved." Silence crashed down. Every head turned toward me. My mother's face drained of color. My father stood. "This is ridiculous," he barked. "There must be a mistake." The manager hesitated. "Ma'am," he looked at me. I stood slowly. "I haven't approved," I said evenly. Claire's voice cracked. "You did this on purpose." I shook my head. I followed protocol. My father stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Fix this, now." I looked at him, the man who never once defended me, who taught me to make myself smaller so others could feel big. "No," I said. The word landed softly, final. The room buzzed with whispers. Donors glanced at their watches. Partners frowned. "This is my daughter," my father said sharply, trying to salvage control. I laughed. Not loud, just enough. "I'm not confused," I said. "I'm just done pretending I don't matter." My mother whispered my name like a warning. I kept going. "I've been paying for your celebrations, cleaning up your messes, holding everything together quietly so you could take credit." My father snapped. "You're humiliating us." I nodded. You taught me how. Claire's eyes filled with tears, not of guilt, but rage. You're jealous. You always have been. That one hurt, deep, old. I took a breath. I wanted you to love me. The room stilled. I wanted you to see me, I continued, voice steady but breaking at the edges. But you only ever saw what I could do for you. My father opened his mouth. I raised a hand. I'm not here to fight. I turned to the manager. Release the approvals. He hesitated. Are you sure? I looked around the room one last time, at my family, frozen in fear and confusion, and something dangerously close to regret. Yes, I said. I'm sure. The night resumed, but something fundamental had shifted. They finished dinner, but they'd lost the room. Afterward, my father cornered me near the exit. You think this makes you powerful? He hissed. No, I said quietly. It makes me free. My mother stood behind him, tears streaking her makeup. Why are you doing this? I met her gaze. Because loving you cost myself. Claire didn't say a word. She just stared at me like I'd betrayed her. I had, but only because she'd betrayed me first. Every day we grew up together. I walked out without looking back. In my car, the silence wrapped around me like a blanket. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt empty and strangely whole. My phone buzzed one last time. We didn't know, my mother wrote. I stared at the screen until the screen dimmed. You always know. You just don't care until it costs you something. I started the engine. Behind me, the venue glowed, beautiful, fragile, built on borrowed foundations. Ahead of me was something unfamiliar, a life that didn't require me to beg for space. I thought the quiet would feel lonely. Instead, it felt honest. The weeks after the engagement dinner passed without drama. No screaming voicemails, no public apologies, no desperate confessions of love. Just distance, clean and intentional, like a wound finally allowed to scab instead of being reopened every day. My parents didn't call, Claire didn't text, and for the first time in my life, I didn't chase the silence. I poured myself into work, not to escape, but to rebuild something that belonged entirely to me. I stopped answering questions I didn't owe answers to. I stopped explaining myself. I stopped softening my words to make other people comfortable. That alone felt like revenge. One afternoon, I ran into my aunt at a coffee shop. She looked startled, like she'd seen a ghost. You really embarrassed your father, she said, not bothering with hello. I smiled politely. I embarrassed him for decades. I think we're even. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Word traveled fast in families like mine, but never the full truth, just fragments, just enough to paint me as difficult, ungrateful, cold. I let them. I'd spent too long trying to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding me. A month later, the official fallout landed. My father's company lost a major partner, then another. Quietly, respectfully, one by one. No scandals, no lawsuits, just an erosion of trust. People talk, especially when they realized the quiet daughter was the one holding the infrastructure together. I didn't sabotage anything. I simply stopped protecting them. My mother finally called the night my father stepped down. Her voice was smaller than I remembered. He's not well, she said. This has been very hard on him. I leaned against my kitchen counter, listening. I'm sorry, she added quickly, like she was afraid I'd hang up. For what? I asked. There was a long pause. For not seeing you, she whispered. My chest tightened, not with rage, but grief, the kind that comes too late to fix anything. I needed you to see me when it mattered, I said softly. I know that now. We sat in the silence. She didn't ask me to come home. I didn't offer. That was the difference. A few days later, Claire showed up at my apartment unannounced. She looked different, less polished, tired in a way sleep doesn't fix. You just want to talk, she said. I stepped aside and let her in. She wandered through my space like she was trying to understand me through furniture, through light, through air. You always had this independence. I laughed quietly. I had no choice. She sat on the couch, twisting her hands. Do you hate me? The question surprised me. I thought about it. Really thought. No, I said, but I don't trust you. She flinched. You never needed to fight me, I continued. You were already always chosen. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I didn't know. I met her eyes. You knew. You just liked it. She didn't argue. That was her answer. When she left, I felt lighter, not because we reconciled, but because I stopped pretending we could. The final closure came quietly, a formal letter, legal language, ownership transfers completed, my name alone on the documents. I framed one page and hung it in my office, not as a trophy, but as a reminder of what happens when you survive long enough to stop asking for permission. Months later, I attended a charity event for my own company. I stood on a stage I paid for, thanked people who respected me, shook hands without shrinking. Across the room, I saw my parents. They hadn't known I'd be there. My father looked older, smaller, not defeated, but diminished. My mother clutched his arm like an anchor. Our eyes met. He nodded once. Not an apology, not pride, recognition. It was enough. I didn't go over. I didn't need to. Some losses don't deserve confrontation. They deserve distance. That night, as I drove home, I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who stood in corners, who believed love was something you earned by being useful. I wished I could tell her this. You don't win by destroying them. You win by outgrowing them. They didn't lose their celebration that night. They lost their daughter, and they didn't even realize it until there was no one left to blame. I unlocked my door, stepped inside, and let it close behind me. No echoes, no guilt, just peace. And for the first time in my life, it was mine.